Welcome to the Mind of Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Amani Roberts. Let's talk about your business. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you very much. Alicia, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to sit down and chat with you.
I love when we have guests with a sort of unique business. And when I say unique, it's not like you're doing something that nobody else is doing, but we have a lot of marketers, we have a lot of leadership experts, we have a lot of mindset experts. You probably, have some of all of that going on in your business, but that's not your business. So let's start by talking about what you do.
Yes, my business. I am a professional DJ. I've DJed all over the world, also music producer and a professor at Cal State University Fullerton. Everything that I do is focused on DJing in the music business, also an author. And that's kind of what makes up my unique business, which I appreciate you saying that.
I love it. So it's fun to explore all of the different avenues that people can really embrace their passion, their creativity, and thrive. You don't have to always fit this sort of conventional box. And I'd imagine that not every DJ, just like not every marketer, just like not every guru and right, not everybody is going to strike it rich in that type of business. But there are some people who really do make it a thriving business. And you've got a pretty big following. You're doing a lot of stuff. Like you said, you've been at this for a while. You've been all over the world, so to speak. So I'd love a little bit more of the backstory behind that and how you have taken something that is your passion and turned it into a successful business.
Yes, I first recognized that I wanted to be a DJ. It was probably like a senior in college, Howard University, Washington, D.C. I was at a club where I saw DJ Bismarck E playing, may he rest in peace. And it was amazing just what he did with the crowd, how he manipulated, and just really took us on a journey. So I knew that time that I wanted to be a DJ, but I didn't feel it was a legitimate career. I was incorrect, but it took me many years to kind of realize that. So I grew up working in hotels. I worked Marriott hotels for almost 20, 25 years, a long time. And ever since I was like 17 years old. So that allowed me to travel and work across the country. And then eventually when I got to California, after some certain life events, I was like, tomorrow's never guaranteed. It's very cliche, but true. Let me try to go at least try to see what DJing is about, learn. I went through the process, started DJing on my own, then went to a DJ school, Scratch Academy, and that allowed me to get the courage to really go for it full time. And that is kind of how I started and really tried to really put all my all into the business. And from there, it's taken me on an incredible journey because along the way, you volunteer with volunteer associations that led me to getting like a professor position at a major university. And one thing leads to another. And if you keep grinding, good things will happen. So that's kind of the backstory. Went from hospitality, hotels, experience, and then went to DJing full time. And then that led me to the professor. And now it's just like it's all kind of coming together in today's age.
And you have a book.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yes, my book is DJs Mean Business. And what it does is it takes the time slots of a DJ set, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. We break it up into like 15-minute increments and we relate it to growing a business. So for example, 10 p.m. to 10:15, I'm just getting there, like getting started at the club, reading the crowd, seeing who's there, trying to make sure I keep the people there. If you're in business or you're trying to grow your own personal brand, like identifying your ideal client and figuring out what can you do to find more of them. If you're trying to grow your career, like what do you want to do? How can you get to that career path as soon as possible? That's like 10 o'clock. We fast forward to maybe 11 p.m. and something always goes wrong in the DJ booth. Could be a computer crashing, dirty needles, speaker going out, somebody spills something on your equipment. Something will always go wrong, but you can never let the music stop. And that's a very, you want to apply that same concept to life, whether in business, maybe the product that you were trying to sell isn't very popular, but something else that you discounted and didn't think was important actually has relevance. What are you going to do to shift and maybe focus on that more? And I love this example in your personal life, or if you're growing your career, maybe what you went to school for or your first job isn't what you love, and you find something else that you really love and you're good at. Well, how do you shift and do that? Because that's what you want to be. That's like the 11 o'clock. Then at midnight, it's prime time. How do you keep the dance floor packed? Hit after hit, people singing along. But you also have to cycle through to make sure people go to the bar so that the bartenders get love. In business, like how are you growing sales, week over week, month over month, year over year? That's like prime time growing sales. In your personal or career life, like getting promotions. One job is leading to the next job, or you're growing your business and you're getting new clients and you're elevating and getting to a new level of people that are surrounding you. So that takes you to midnight. I love the nostalgia time period. I think nostalgia is like 1:30 p.m. I love slow jams. So, I always love to play slow jams in the set because people kind of get happy because it brings them back to maybe a happier time or a time when they have had fewer inhibitions or fewer bills, if I'm being honest, things like that. But businesses use nostalgia a lot too. Nintendo's one of my favorite examples, Adidas, Old Spice, and that's how they recreate and reinvent themselves and stay relevant. And then finally, the night's over. You have a chapter on feedback. I used to drive for Uber, so I would leave the club, get in my car, turn on my meter, and very often I would pick up people who were in the same club that I DJ'd at, and I'd ask them for feedback. What did you think of the music? What would you change? Then at the end of the drive, I say, by the way, I was the DJ, because many times they don't see me, or they just they forget who I was, and then they bug out or whatever. So, and that applies to business or your career. Like, feedback's a gift. So how can you use feedback to grow and continue to get better as a person? And that's like a quick summary. I skipped some chapters, but you get the idea about the book.
It's awesome because you're obviously catering to other DJs in a language that they can really resonate with. But it also is very applicable to other businesses and other people. And what I found is that regardless of what business you're in, there is a lot of crossover. There's a lot of crossover between business and life. And there's a huge distinction, right, between the old model of business, which is sort of separating business is over here, life is over here, and more of this conscious approach to business, which is growing in a lot of popularity as people are recognizing they don't want to feel disconnect. They don't want to feel like they're creating a separate life. I'm this person as a business owner, and I'm this person as the spouse and the parent and the friend and all of that stuff, because we're not different people. We're the same person.
Right.
And I'd love from your perspective, where you've been able to sort of marry that have that balance within yourself between who you are and what you love, both professionally as well as personally.
That's an interesting one. I think, with what I do, it's just got a social aspect to it anyways. So a lot of times, if I'm like meeting up with friends or whatever, they might ask, well, they want to talk about music maybe because I'm a DJ, so I know about music, so they want to talk about that. Or, maybe some of my friends have like kids who are getting ready to get into college or whatever, and they asking, well, as someone who works at a university, what should we look at or what should we do? So I understand, like, it's the old school way of thinking is that you must kind of keep your career and your personal life like separate, but it doesn't really work that way anymore because with networking, like there's always crossover and there's blending the two. Because really, it's very cliche, but it's not really what it's who and those personal connections come through being personal and making friends and talking to friends of friends, and everything kind of is interwoven together. So I agree with you. It's just really interesting how we've evolved over the past maybe 20, 25 years to get to where we are today.
Absolutely. And I see more evolution to follow. I think a lot more people are letting go of the old paradigms and stepping into a new way of thinking, a new way of being that is a lot more conscious of our humanness, our humanity. And I know that a lot of people listening to this show are really beautiful human beings. They have huge hearts. They're not in it just for the money. They're doing a business that also is very much enmeshed in their personal values and wanting to be of service and to be a better version of themselves. I think that these types of conversations are great because we are able to sort of highlight the value of just do your right thing, follow your right path.
Mm. Yes. Yes, I agree.
And you've got a pretty good following. So how did that all come about?
I think for my following, a couple of things really kind of helped it kind of grow. Of course, launching the book really helped. That was April 2020, but growing through that, just good networking skills, using like platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn. Once the pandemic happened, I started to stream on Twitch, which to my surprise, I completely underestimated the power of this, but it opened me up to a more international audience. If I'm either doing a talk show, game show, or a DJ set on Twitch, I could have people tuning in from, of course, the US, Canada, Latin America, Australia, Brazil, even over in like Europe with London, Amsterdam. Like I was completely shocked about how the reach is because the internet has no limits. And I just, just kind of forget about that. So that really opened up my mind and really opened up my kind of audience to all over the world. And then you kind of bring that and you translate that over to like your email list and go from there. So it's just really not only being present when you're working on your following, but also engaging with other people, like as basic as commenting on someone's post consistently, but being authentic. Sharing what they have going on in their network, whether it be if someone's looking for work on LinkedIn or someone's promoting an event on Instagram or Twitter, like just being sharing, but having no expectations, I think is the key. And if you combine all those activities and that philosophy, that's allowed me to grow my following and continue to grow. But it's a marathon. It is not a race. I have to really work on myself, not comparing. I think that's the hardest thing, is not comparing my following to other people's following. If someone's growing faster or someone's got a much larger number of followers, like, you can't compare your chapter 4 to someone else's chapter 20. I think it's a good way to look at it. But those are things that I'm working on. That's what I've done to kind of grow the following. That's what I continue to do. I also, as we talk about with my students, we had a very healthy conversation a couple of days ago about how, it's very wise to not put all your eggs in like these social media buckets, because, we talk about the story of like MySpace, who uses MySpace now, but we were so focused on getting, our followers there in the past. Now it's gone. But really using your email list as a nice home base, because I think email is going to be here for a while. It won't go away. And it's just very, very helpful. So you combine all those activities, that philosophy, and that's what I've been able to do to kind of grow my following and maintain it. And we grow at a nice, steady pace.
Awesome advice. Love it. And it's perfect segue too, to talk to you a little bit more about your own personal mindset journey as an entrepreneur, which you weaved in a little bit. What I've oftentimes asked guests is if there is a certain mindset shift that they had to make, or a mindset obstacle that they continued to bump up against and finally had to sort of overcome in order to get to that next level in their business. Is there something you'd be willing to share with us?
Absolutely. I mentioned before I went to Scratch Academy for DJ school. It's a very challenging program. You have to pass 6 different classes that go about 10 to 12 weeks. So it takes you about a year and a half. And to pass the final class, it's all subjective. You're doing DJ sets, so you might be having a bad day. Your mixing could be off. You could have picked the wrong songs. The way you're speaking on the microphone could have been incorrect, but it's subjective because you're judged by instructors. And the first time I went through this class, it was called like Mixing 505, I think is the name of it. you're supposed to get 320 points out of 400, basically a B, 80% to pass and graduate. For my score, I got 318 out of 400. So I missed passing by 2 points and they wouldn't pass me. And I'll never forget that this was the same day where we were having like this alumni reception, this like after we went through our exams, because they bring you in, you have this 20-minute set, you have to watch everyone, we had to wait for almost an hour to get our scores. It was crazy. Um, and I didn't pass. And I remember driving down the 405 thinking, am I going to go back and try again? Because you could take the final class again, but there's still no guarantee that you can pass. Or am I going to just pack up, take my ball and go home? And I think that was a very pivotal moment in my DJ career because I said, you know what, I'm going to stick with it. I know it's been very challenging, but I have to tap into my resilience and I have to try again. So I went back to try again another semester, ended up getting one of the highest scores ever and passing, but also served as a mentor to other people who were trying to pass the class. And I would say that was a very important time for mindset, just because, in business and in life, you're going to be thrown some curveballs, you're going to fail, and you can't quit. You're not allowed to give up. I know we have tough times personally and professionally, and we can't see a way out of the darkness, so to speak, but you must continue to try again. Just get back up. I think the African proverb saying is you fall down 7 times, you get up 8 times. Similar concept, very simple, but it's very, very difficult because I see many people who they just tap out. They just can't get with trying again. It's too hard. So that would be the first example of just really developing a more resilient mindset. And then that kind of grew into working and trying to get into more like growth mindset, being open, and just trying to learn as much as possible and trying to check your ego at the door as much as possible. And but it's not easy. And working on your mindset is a consistent practice, because life is hard and life will throw you some curveballs, but you have to keep going. So that's my example for that.
It's one that everybody can relate to. That's one of the reasons that I created my Inner Game Academy, was to help people to gain that inner strength, the resilience, to overcome the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, to really start to tap into the inner reservoir of power. Because in business, we are oftentimes encountering not only our inner shit, our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, our limiting beliefs, the old habits of giving up, walking away, the old stuff that we've been programmed with.
Yeah. I think,
but you're
go
right.
ahead.
You can't quit.
No. I'm sorry. Keep going. I was just thinking, but, you're right. You can't quit. You have to be careful about who you have around you and not to let their insecurities and their limiting beliefs, what you mentioned, don't let them project that onto you. That's a really, really interesting one there. And just really be selective about who you have around you. I think that's one thing I've learned pretty recently that's just really important, because sometimes you don't even realize it. And it's not, you can't have limiting beliefs, because then you'll never get anywhere. So that's my response to your statement there.
There are a lot of people who feel stuck because the people around them, like their family members, have a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of fear and project a lot of negativity. If it's friends, that's challenging enough to walk away from in some cases. But when it's family, I've heard over the many years that I've been working with clients, a lot of people who feel hopeless because their significant other has a lot of doubt in their ability, or has a lot of lack mentality, or parents or siblings or whoever, right? People that are sort of you can't just simply get rid of them.
Amen. Amen.
But the reality is that you don't have to buy into it. And that is a mental, emotional muscle that we have to start to build. And we do need to surround ourselves with more people who can help us sort of weather those storms and believe in us and know our potential and keep rooting us on, even when there's no evidence, even when we are encountering what appears to be an insurmountable obstacle or failure. From your perspective, your personal journey, what guidance or advice would you give to those individuals?
Excellent question. I've kind of dealt with some of this myself. For example, when I left Marriott to pursue DJing full time, many family members were like, "Are you crazy? What are you thinking? Like, you need to keep your regular job and do this because that's not a career, that's a hobby." Um, so I'm gonna mention a few things that I did that really helped me that I think can help anyone. Is that we don't get to choose our family, but for the most part, it depends on the situation. You can depend on how much you interact with them. And you could try to limit the amount of interaction, especially, if they're consistently being negative and they're not uplifting you. And I would say, like, let's go forward and let's move forward with building kind of your own family. It could be a virtual family. They could find your podcast and your show, and maybe that's one family member. You've been adopted, you don't even know yet. And it could be someone as even major stars. Some of the people that I love, like Les Brown, Mel Robbins, Tim Ferriss, like some of those people, you can kind of listen to their positive and reaffirming content, and that can help you. And then I think you have to get out of the people and the friend group that you're in or the family group you're in and meet some actual people in life that are probably going through the same thing you're going through. And they're trying to get around more positive people, more uplifting people. And talk to them more and spend more time with them more. I think, I also invite people to read books. There's some amazing books out there. Some of my favorites are like The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, Big Magic of Elizabeth Gilbert. Those are two that come to mind right away that really kind of opens up your mind to just more positive thinking. Of course, you have the famous books like The Four Agreements and other books like that. But also, I recommend reading autobiographies because there's guaranteed to be people who have been through something similar to you. And many, many of the most successful people had family, friends, significant others who would doubt them when they were trying to pursue their dreams, and listen and see how they got through that doubt and use that. I also recommend journaling, which I really learned some great tactics and strategies from The Artist's Way book, Julia Cameron, like journaling, writing down. Something new that I started to do and will continue to do is like write letters to yourself. I completely underestimated the power of this, but that could be very powerful, particularly when you're in it really thick. Like if you realize, my brother, not really positive, very negative doing that, or my mom, just kind of never really is encouraging. Like if you write down a letter to yourself, or even write a letter to them, but don't mail it, don't put it in the mail, write a letter to them, just to express yourself. That will relieve you of so much stress and weight. And then just continue to network, find people, like build your own tribe. I think all those strategies will help you get unstuck and at least create some space for you to learn and do that. Traveling, going to conferences, if you're like working with a specific product or in a specific industry or like self-development, I think that all that combined can really help you get unstuck and at least work on the mindset. And also to understand mindset, one of my favorite books is Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck. I hope I pronounced her last name right. Phenomenal book. Like read some of these books so you can understand your feelings, because a lot of times we are feeling things, we don't say, what's this coming from? What does this mean? And then when we have someone who's an expert that's written it down and put it in a book format, you're like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who's feeling this way. I have people out there that are going through it with me. Those are all some strategies that I would recommend to help people start so you're not stuck.
Great tips. Now, I want to make sure our listeners know how they can connect with you. So can you share with us your website and anywhere else you want to direct them to?
My website, it's amaniexperience.com. So A like Apple, M like Mary, A like Apple, N like Nancy, I, experience, all one word.com. Socials like Instagram and Twitter is Amani Experience. LinkedIn, you can find me like Amani Roberts. I'm there. And then Twitch would be twitch.tv/Amani Experience. But the website will get you to me. If you reach out and, want to leave me a note or a comment, I'll respond back. But yeah, that's the best way to reach me. And thank you for asking.
Well, it's been a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you so much for being with us and sharing so many valuable takeaways.
Awesome. Well, Alicia, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. And I love the questions that you asked me.
Well, I want to, of course, thank our listeners who have been with us this whole conversation. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.